Studio 8H brings back a lot of memories. 25 years of Saturday Night Live. Over there is where we did the first Coneheads. Yep, right here. In fact, I think this is some of the electrical equipment we used in that very first Coneheads. Over here is where we did Samurai Deli, right there. In fact, Belushi died right there. Gilda died over there somewhere. In fact, this is where she did Rosanna Dana.
Wrong.
But at times, Christina's sexy character threatened to overwhelm her.
They were all on the balconies and they were shouting at Christina and hey Blondie and this and that. It was unbelievable.
They increased the amount, the clothes got tighter.
Christina faced personal struggles.
I used to say, you're too skinny. You know, why don't you eat something?
And she coped with private pain.
She just looked gray. She couldn't even talk.
What went through my head is your parents are not supposed to get sick.
In an exclusive interview, Christina reveals how she overcame the hardships with help from friends, family, and a whole lot of faith.
My prayers were answered. They just were answered in a different way.
And Christina shares the inside story on her return to television for the biggest challenge in her career.
And at one point I went, oh my God, what is going on?
Join us as we reveal the surprising side of this talented actress.
Nobody was doing it with anybody there, okay?
She talked about that?
You pretty much
Covered it all, right?
covered it all.
What's her favorite thing? It's all good.
It's all good. This is Christina Applegate, Celebrity Profile.
It's all good.
(1967), the summer of love. The ideal time for a 27-year-old actress and singer named Nancy Pretty to meet her future husband.
I had done a records album for Dot Records. I was in New York. And I met Bobby Applegate because he was producer for Dot Records. So when I came out here, that's how we met and got married and had a little girl.
The little girl, Christina Applegate, was born on November 25th, 1971 in Los Angeles, California.
There actually is a tape somewhere of the sounds that I made when I popped out of my mother's womb. And you could just hear my mom screaming and crying. And then you just hear this duck. And that was me. Those were my first sounds. I sounded like a duck.
Yeah, she sounded like a duck. We have her primal scream.
Christina's father, Robert Applegate.
At the time, I was a disc jockey at KPPC in LA, and Christina was a Lamaze baby. So I was there and I taped her birth. And her mom had an album out at that time, and one of the tracks on the album was called Christina's World.
Christina's world was a world of willow trees.
So I went into the studio the night after she was born, played the tape of her birth on the radio, and then segued into Christina's World. And the reaction from the viewers was outrageous.
He's talking to someone no one sees. Lightning bugs at sundown.
But the joy of Christina's arrival was not enough to hold her parents' marriage together. Robert and Nancy separated in early 1972.
I'm sure it was, very hard on both of them. And they had a baby and, their relationship wasn't working out.
I like to think of it that he was a little bit country and I was a little bit rock and roll.
Nancy Pretty was now a struggling actress and a single mother. When a casting director friend for Days of Our Lives needed a mother and infant for a small walk-on role, Nancy got the call.
The first person to ever call me Christina Applegate's mother was my agent. He called up about a week later and said, "Is this Christina Applegate's mother?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "They want her to come back for another appearance, but they don't need you." So I should have seen the handwriting on the wall.
Christina's future as an actress seemed destined when at 3 months she was again cast with her mother in a Playtex Nurser commercial.
She makes fun of the way I talk on it because I'm just so sweet. So she spits up less, has less gas. Now she has less gas and spits up less.
because Playtex collapsible bottles and natural-shaped nipples mean less air in her tummy and no work and worry about cleaning bottles.
It's a little embarrassing.
Working with Christina allowed Nancy to care for her daughter and still make ends meet.
Lean times, yeah, we were scrambling all the time. That was one of the hardest things, and you know, we were always struggling. We're not the wealthiest people in the world.
She worked from the time she was a baby, you know, pretty consistently and straight through, so I don't think there was any other option. It really became a lifestyle.
There I was, single mother. You slap a little lipstick on them and throw them up on stage. And we did that with our kids.
Nancy and Christina spent nearly every waking moment together, forging a strong bond. In 1974, the money struggle eased somewhat when 3-year-old Christina landed a series of radio commercials for Kmart.
My little voice on there, you know, I could barely even speak at that point.
I can't say all that. My mouth is too little.
So they'd have to splice all my consonants together in order to make sentences.
Jeffrey, what? Are you the opposite sex or am I?
And the campaign took off and went on for 4 years. She bought a house. We call it Kmart Manor.
Nancy also used the income from the commercials to enroll Christina in dance classes, giving the 7-year-old a focus outside show business.
She always felt that it was really important for me to have a positive addiction, because I think she had seen so much negative addiction. And it was really important to her to make sure that her kid, you know, had something that she would go to every week.
In 1979, Nancy and 8-year-old Christina flew to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to co-star in the low-budget horror film Jaws of Satan.
It's all good, you know. I always said I was acting. I never said I was all that good of an actress at 8.
That was a real snake. And she didn't know that that snake was going to be there.
After the film wrapped, Pretty wanted to stay in Alabama, which would have meant skipping her yearly doctor's exam.
Chrissy wanted to come home. And so we came home, and I went and had the doctor's appointment. And sure enough, that's when I was first diagnosed.
Coming up on Celebrity Profile.
I always said she saved my life, because if I'd waited 6 months, I'd been too late.
And later, the inside story on the role that made Christina a star.
Even though I was only 12 at the time, like, I just knew, like, this was the right. It just felt like it was happening.
Talking to someone no one sees.
In late 1979, 8-year-old Christina Applegate and her mother, Nancy Pretty, curtailed their vacation in Alabama because Christina was homesick for Los Angeles. Upon returning, Nancy discovered she had a small malignant tumor in her breast.
I remember it being very traumatic, but she didn't have to have any treatments, and they did what they had to do. They removed it, and we moved on from there.
So I always said she saved my life, because if I'd waited 6 months, I'd been too late.
Nancy recovered quickly and resumed work as an actress. She also reluctantly managed Christina's career.
I really had no intention of her doing anything professionally. You know, it was just, she just would do things and fall into stuff with me.
In early 1980, while waiting in line for a commercial audition, Nancy met a woman who changed the course of Christina's life, talent manager Tammy Lynn.
I couldn't get my eyes off of Christina. She was so beautiful. She was so beautiful. And so Nancy happened to mention to me that she was really just not going out. And I was shocked.
Lynn eagerly signed Christina as a client, sending the young actress for new headshots and setting up auditions. While their acting careers kept Christina and Nancy busy in Los Angeles, Christina remained close to her father and his new family in Northern California.
What we offered was a balance for her in life. So we would do the normal stuff, take her to a Dodger game, go to the beach, go to the lake, camping, things of that nature, away from show business.
By 1982, 10-year-old Christina's extended family included half-sister Elisa and half-brother Kyle. No longer an only child, Christina cherished her new siblings.
When our younger brother was being brought home from the hospital, I just remember her and I being so excited that Kyle was coming home, and it was just like a huge big deal.
When not visiting her second family, Christina and her mother lived deep within Laurel Canyon, a secluded community in the Hollywood Hills. There, Christina met her best friend, Farrell Baker.
I basically remember, as far as her and acting and all that, is her dancing. I remember seeing her dance a lot more.
By age 13, dancing had become a passion for Christina.
She was totally into it. She's a fantastic dancer. She's like one of the best dancers I know.
We were always coming down here for shows, and I remember just sitting there watching her going like, wow, yeah, that's my sister.
But with manager Tammy Lynn guiding her career, Christina found less time for dancing. Applegate landed roles on sitcoms such as Charles in Charge, Family Ties, and Silver Spoons. In 1985, 14-year-old Christina co-starred in her first network television drama, Heart of the City.
That was my one win in my life. Do you know, where I really felt an accomplishment?
The part of an angst-ridden daughter was exactly the sort of dramatic challenge Christina longed for, but the low-rated series was canceled before the end of the first season.
It was pretty sad, and I didn't know how much I wanted to even really do anything ever again.
She said, Mama, I don't want to do another series. Just emotionally, it was too hard.
Years of struggling in Hollywood had already taken a toll on Christina.
I wanted to just not have this life, and I sat my mother down. I said, look, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of it. I want to be a kid. I want to play. I don't want to do it. And she said, fine.
But Hollywood wasn't through with Christina. As Heart of the City was being canceled, a new sitcom pilot went into production for the fledgling Fox network. The outrageous comedy Married with Children starred Katie Sagal and Ed O'Neill.
I thought it was really hysterically funny. I also thought that this is too weird for television.
Originally, the Bud and Kelly, those characters, were played by two other actors. In the pilot, I think the producers felt that they were going to have to make a change.
Producers had seen Christina's strong work on Heart of the City. They sent a script and a copy of the pilot to Christina's mother and manager.
It just was so funny. So I passed it on to them. I said, guys, you got to look at this. We go, no. And then Tammy sent us the pilot. And Christy and I sat there and looked at him and said, funny, isn't it?
She and I looked at each other at one point, and we're like, oh no, it's really funny.
Despite her reluctance, Christina agreed to audition. Actor David Faustino was also called in for the recasting.
When Christina and I went in together, even though I was only 12 at the time, I just knew, this was it just felt like it was happening.
Christina and David were hired and quickly reshot their scenes for the pilot episode. The series premiered on April 5th, 1987.
Let go of my hair, you little psychopath. Die, call me bimbo.
Relying on racy humor, Married with Children turned the tables on the traditional family sitcoms. The ratings were low, but the series drew notice from critics.
I tell people this, and I don't think they believe me, but the initial reviews on the pilot were excellent.
In the beginning, Christina's dim-witted character was not fully developed.
Maybe they wrote one or two jokes where Kelly was dumb, and Christina just played it really well. And it's like, okay, let's try that.
And she's got a great sense of comedy.
For a quiet evening home, I like to put on a little soft music, get a little fire going, and listen to my brother inflating his date.
She's got a great understanding of what makes something funny.
I know that Kelly didn't start off, as much of a trollop as she ended up being. But when I was around 17, she really just kind of let it go,
Capitalizing on Christina's comic talents and natural beauty, producers turned Kelly Bundy into the ultimate teenage bimbo, further adding to the show's raunchiness.
Oh, the pressure. Kelly, you have to go to school. Kelly, you have to pass. Kelly, you have to learn to read.
Come on now, sweetheart. I know you can pass. You're a smart girl.
I loved it. I loved that it was dirty and bad, and wrong and that people were going to get upset about it. I kind of liked that, you know.
But raunchiness alone wasn't enough to increase ratings, so the actors hit the road to promote the low-rated sitcom.
It was like pretty pathetic because we'd be sitting in these little towns, and like we'd be sitting there and like we'd have like 3 people lined up. No one knew who we were.
But in year 2, the edgy comedy of Married with Children made the show a hit, just not the way the producers planned.
Well, there was this big scandal because we offended some people. This woman named Terry Ricolta in Michigan, she was all uptight because her children were watching the show, and she decided to write to sponsors. So she did that, and it just sort of backfired and put us on the front page of the New York Times, and before we knew it, everybody was watching the show. We used to send her flowers every year.
By the end of its 2nd season, Married with Children was one of the biggest hits on the Fox network.
One time we were at this mall in Westwood. There were 10,000 people there. And it got a little scary. I mean, they were, you know, and especially with Christina, we all sort of kind of had to, you know, huddle around and get everybody off, but make sure she was sort of in the middle because, you know, it got a little nuts.
They were shouting at Christina and hey Blondie and this and that, and it was just, it was unbelievable.
Christina's zealous fans often showed up for tapings.
Oh, big hoops and hollers and, you know, cat whistles. It's got to be a little odd when you're 17 years old.
Not that it was good nor bad. It was just that part of it. It always was work to me, you know? And that's just what came along with work. And that's just how it is.
Coming up on Celebrity Profile, the marketing of Christina Applegate.
The infamous eagle snake poster.
And later, adversity returns.
What went through my head is your parents are not supposed to get sick. You know, it made people happy.
She talked about that? See, I was going to bring it today, and I thought, I can't bring that. She hates that poster.
I mean, at the time, it's totally 80s, bro.
But I know that it haunts her. Yeah, I have it actually in my garage, framed very nicely.
By 1990, Christina realized that the poster and the show threatened to typecast her, but there was little that could be done. Producers insisted on upping Kelly Bundy's bimbo factor.
They increased the amount the clothes got tighter. Remember, you know, they always wanted her to be in short skirts. They always wanted her to have low cut, you know. I remember one year she wanted to dye her hair. She didn't want to have blonde hair, and so she wore a wig for a whole season because she dyed her hair. But the producers were adamant that she had to be blonde.
Thanks.
Co-star Amanda Bierce.
Christina often talked about her concern with being typecast because she was a young actor and nobody anticipated the show going on for so many seasons, and she stayed with it for all 11 seasons.
Hoping to broaden her image and her resume, Christina searched for characters completely different from Kelly Bundy.
I wasn't interested in playing Kelly Bundy in everything that I did. I just tried to find things that were going to sort of, where I could expand as, you know, an actor and as a person.
And the plan was to make sure that we find roles that were different and challenging, and that's what we did.
During her hiatus from Married with Children in 1990, Christina stretched her acting muscles. She played a teenage heroin addict in the low-budget film Streets. Director Kat Shea.
She just read a few lines and I knew. She just had that character down. Even though she didn't look like what I had in my mind, she had the soul of the character. It was really incredible. I mean, I knew instantly.
Christina even tried growing up on screen, playing a corporate executive in the 1991 feature Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Critics noticed Christina's performances, but the movies were not box office hits. Fans apparently still wanted Kelly Bundy.
Well, they loved that bimbo thing, and she'd go in and out of feeling really uncomfortable with it. It's hard after a while. You just have to keep reminding yourself that you are not the character you're playing.
But Christina tried to live up to that image. She went on drastic diets to stay thin.
She always had a thing about her weight, and she's very insecure about her looks.
I never had pressure from anyone but myself. So the character was a certain way, and that's the way she looked. And the way she looked was a really big part of who she was. It was extremely detrimental for me.
I used to say, you're too skinny. You know, why don't you eat something? Because she'd get so thin. And I knew it was because she was concerned about the weight, you know, and she wouldn't eat.
Going through adolescence, there's all kinds of body changes that you go through, and I really felt for her because those are hard years and hard changes to go through, like on national television.
The tabloids picked up on Christina's struggle with her weight, but that was only one of many stories published over the 11-year run of the series. For the close-knit cast, the most outrageous stories were often met with amusement.
I remember one article came out in one of those trade papers. It was a rumor that Christina and I were having an affair. And it's so funny because, of course, I ran out and bought a few copies, you know, and I brought them to work the next day, and I was overjoyed, you know, I was passing them around. And, of course, she came in with the exact opposite feeling, you know. She was, you know, horrified.
Nobody was doing it with anybody there, okay? That's the one thing I'm gonna like clarify for all the world to know.
But then it also came out in some tabloid that I was dating David Faustino. I mean, you know, at a certain point, you just, you know, it's ridiculous.
The Married with Children cast became more than friends. For Christina, the actors formed a second family.
They were wonderful people, and they really took on those roles. When Dave and I were young, you know, they really nurtured us and cared about us. And Katie had a very mothering nature about her. And Eddie was always there as sort of this strong, you know, the pillar of the whole thing.
In 1996, Christina relied on her second family more than ever when her mother was diagnosed with cancer again.
The second bout with cancer was really difficult because she had to go through chemotherapy.
It was more frightening for everybody.
Unlike Nancy's previous bout with cancer in 1979, the battle this time wouldn't be won so easily. Coming up on Celebrity Profile, Christina keeps a vigil by her mother's bedside.
She just looked gray.
And later, Christina finally sheds the ghost of Kelly Bundy, but finds a whole new set of pressures.
And at one point I went, oh my God, what is going on?
For 24 years, Christina Applegate and her mother, Nancy Pretty, supported each other through good times and bad. In 1996, their lives took a frightening turn when Christina learned that her mother's cancer had returned.
That was really difficult because she had to go through chemotherapy, and there were moments in there where I didn't know what was going to happen.
I know she would come into my hospital room sometimes because I had something like 6 surgeries in a year and a half. And I remember coming in one time and she just looked gray. She couldn't even talk.
You watch somebody go through all of that, and you watch them lose their hair, and you watch them have to let go of all of those things that, you know, we make pretty in our lives, you know, and she really had to focus on spirit and on getting better.
She just sat over in the corner, and just her skin looked gray. It was a horrible experience for her.
What went through my head is your parents are not supposed to get sick. They're not supposed to leave you.
Christina's world was a world of fuss and cry. Christina's world was a world of empty rooms and yellow lace. Christina has a funny face, nobody...
Nancy's illness resurfaced during the 11th season of Married with Children. Christina was devastated, but masked her pain on set.
She really tried to just manage things herself. Christina tries to handle stuff.
Christina is a pro, man. She would come in and she would be crying and she would be upset and she would be in her dressing room and then she'd be out and you'd never know it.
I think so much comedy comes out of pain and all of that. So I think for her it was probably a bit of an escape.
Well, I don't know how she did it. She didn't have any choice, really.
Nancy's brave fight inspired Christina to reassess her own priorities.
She really knew that life is comes first, you know, before everything else. And, you know, she'd be doing like, she'd be dancing around my living room, and I just would look at her and go, I can't believe this is a woman who, you know, in appearance, you know, the appearance of everything is sick, you know, is what, and she's happier than I am. And, you know, I think about that a lot.
Nancy's treatment continued as Married with Children taped its final show. For Christina, the cancellation was bittersweet.
I think year after year it was, oh, I gotta do this again. I think that's what she would feel, but when it finally was all over, she was very sad.
Well, we didn't know it was final tape day. I mean, that's one of the things about Married with Children. It was this sort of little show that wouldn't die, and then all of a sudden, boom.
It was awful. We didn't know it was the last episode at all, and it was very depressing, actually, because nobody knew if this was it, if we were saying goodbye.
We were together forever, and then I knew intuitively we weren't coming back, and that's why I cried.
And then when the show ended, and I was happy to see it end, and I think she was, and we all were, because it was, you know, we'd gone on too long. And she called me after, I don't know, a month or so, and she was very emotional about, you know, I love you and I miss you.
I miss them. I miss their faces, and I think all of us sort of went through a period of time where we didn't really know what to do. I know for Dave and I, he and I called each other a couple times, and it was like, what do you do? I don't have the skills for life.
I love her, and I miss her.
Coming up on Celebrity Profile, Christina returns to television in the highest profile series of the new season. And later, a surprising reunion.
Where have you been, young lady?
In the spring of 1996, 25-year-old Christina Applegate taped the final episode of Married with Children. After the series' amazing 11-year run, Christina longed for a break from the grind of weekly television. However, losing the show meant losing her second family.
It's still devastating to me that I'm not with those people every day.
Christina filled the void by jumping into production of 3 consecutive features. First up, the moving drama Claudine's Return, executive produced by Christina's manager, Tammy Lynn. Tammy developed the feature to showcase Christina's range.
When she takes a role, she just doesn't do a role. She takes this role and she dissects it and she tosses it and she analyzes it. And the final analysis of it, she knocks you over.
The day after wrapping Claudine's Return, Christina jetted to Toronto to film the big hit, followed immediately by the Jim Abrams comedy Mafia. After 3 back-to-back movies, Christina missed the feedback from a studio audience.
That immediate response that you get when you're doing that. Either you know that a joke sucked or it went over really well. I mean, you know right then and there. And if it sucked, then the writers change it and it makes it better. With this, you gotta wait. You gotta wait a year.
As much as she longed for that audience interaction, Christina wasn't anxious to get back into TV. Besides, she was determined to shed her Kelly Bundy image once and for all. Ironically, a new television role did the trick. In the spring of 1998, 26-year-old Applegate was offered her own sitcom in one of the most coveted time slots on television, Thursday nights on NBC, following Friends.
My prayers were answered. They just were answered in a different way.
Executive producers Marta Kaufman and David Crane.
When Christina's name came up from the casting people, we all went, well, yeah, that's right.
We just felt very lucky to get her.
My initial reaction was, I don't know if I want to work that much, you know? And I knew that taking on something like that was going to be far more challenging.
Once again, she was not going to go back to television. Once again, her dear manager, Tammy, said, well, let's look at this. Let's have the meeting.
We had a meeting with her, and we, there was some ass kissing, I believe.
I think she...
Smoke blowing.
The show, Jessie, centered on a single mother struggling to make ends meet. The premise echoed Christina's early home life.
I'm a true believer that things come and they hit you and they're put there by something bigger.
Jessie premiered on September 24th, 1998. From the first episode, it was clear that Christina's character was no Kelly Bundy.
Part of the fun of the pilot, in fact, was when you first meet her, she's in this lederhosen with the push-up thing and the whole, and at first you think, oh God, it's going to be sort of a big, dumb, blonde, sexy thing. And then you realize very quickly it's about this real mom trying to deal with so much, and that's just her dumb job during the day.
So what do you got there?
Oh, it's a brochure for a nursing school.
You're going to nursing school? Oh, I'm gonna miss you so much. Maybe someday I'll get a disease and you can nurse me.
Yeah, that would be great. The beautiful thing about Jessie is that her dreams, as small as they may seem, are so much inside of her heart. You know, I mean, she wants to be a nurse. That's all she wants to be. She just wants to be a nurse, and she wants to be a wonderful mother.
Eric Lloyd plays Jessie's son, Little John.
It's amazing because she's in almost every single scene of the show. And she gets the script the very first day, and she's pretty much off the script where she memorizes all of her lines. Like the second day she comes into rehearse, which is amazing.
With its prime time slot, Jessie was the highest-rated new series of the season. Audiences responded to the developing romance between Jessie and her next-door neighbor, Diego, played by Bruno Campos.
I think that's what's been most captivating for the people that have become fans of the show and fans of this relationship is that they feel like it's all very, very natural. And I feel that way sometimes. I mean, I'll be acting with Christina, and I just feel like I've been acting with her my whole life.
Jessie's writers capitalized on the chemistry and turned the show about a single mother into a romantic comedy.
We spent the early part of the series, I was trying to romance the hell out of Christina's character, and it was going pretty well until her husband came along and sort of blew it a little bit.
During the first year, Jessie's family included her father, played by George Zunson, and her brothers, played by John Lair and David DeLuise. Liza Snyder and Jennifer Milmore were cast as Jessie's best friends. From their first day on the set, Christina treated the cast members as her extended family.
She really did something extraordinary in the beginning of the show because she set the tone for how the cast was going to be. And that comes from, I'm sure, you know, you can't be on a sitcom for 11 years. She, from the beginning, made this a great place to be, and there was so much pressure on her.
Well, we had a lot of fun on Married with Children, but it wasn't, like, consistent like this. But I think it's out of being really manic. I don't know. No, we have so much fun together. We barely get through the workday.
I just peed a little bit in my pants.
This is E! True Hollywood
We just act.
Wow, isn't he dreamy?
Oh, my God.
I hope he invites me to the big dance.
Like
I'm doing your interview now.
The lighthearted approach seemed to serve the show. During the first month of production, old friend and Married with Children co-star Ed O'Neill stopped by for a surprise visit.
Where have you been, young lady?
How you doing, Christina?
But despite the relaxed atmosphere on the set, Jessie created unexpected pressures for Christina.
She's in every scene. I mean, that's something that she sort of didn't realize. And it suddenly showed, and I went, wow, it's exhausting.
The highest profile show of the new season, Jessie, received intense scrutiny from critics. Adding to the pressure was the media's fascination with Christina's relationship with actor Jonathan Scheck.
He's my best friend, and we know that this is going on, and we know that people are going to want to know, and we both know how to handle it.
After 6 months under the microscope, Christina finally succumbed to the stress of carrying her own show.
Somewhere halfway through the season, they got to me, those guys who were going, don't you feel all the pressure? And at one point I went, oh my God, what is going on?
Coming up on Celebrity Profile, big changes for Christina.
My current reaction, I'm a little bit shocked.
By December 1998, halfway through the first season of Jessie, 27-year-old Christina Applegate felt the pressure of carrying her own show.
It wasn't perfect, you know, and trying to make it perfect, I think, was the hardest part. You know, you've got a lot of people to answer to. You have a lot of people's opinions on how it should be.
One suggestion that thrilled Christina was bringing back old friend and Married with Children co-star David Faustino for an episode.
I don't know if you caught a clip of that one. You might want to play a clip of that. Bob, do we have a clip of that?
I think I can get you into a fully loaded Centuria for a price that really puts the aving in saving.
They make you say that, don't they?
Yeah. Obviously, she's a good actress. We know that. We've watched her do amazing work on the show. But then to come here and play an entirely different character with different mannerisms and everything is a big challenge, and she's pulling it off, and I was very impressed.
You did that very well.
She told me, okay, did I say it right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You did. No,
I'm very impressed. Okay.
Another Married with Children reunion took place when former co-star Amanda Bierce directed 2 episodes of Jessie.
One more time. But she was fabulous. There wasn't an inkling of Kelly Bundy present. I was so thrilled once again to be back in her company and working with her as a director, but also just to see the way she handled herself and her fellow actors and the writers and producers. She's just so grown up.
In January 1999, Christina's hard work paid off when she received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical Series. Christina was also nominated for Favorite Female Performer in a New TV Series by the People's Choice Awards. More importantly, the show was nominated for Favorite New TV Series.
On the other show, we didn't get to do much of this. We were sort of like the black sheep of television, so there was not a lot of glamour going on over there. Although we enjoyed it, of course, you know. And so this is a whole new thing for me.
Christina and the show won their categories, providing a much-needed pat on the back for the cast.
There we were in this amazing time slot, and I was still afraid that people weren't going to watch it. And they are, and they're liking what we're doing. Yeah. So we have to do more of that.
Yeah. Christina's family was justifiably proud.
Jumping off the couch, high-fiving the kids, running around the house like a maniac. You know, I was just really pleased.
To be validated that way was wonderful, especially in something like a show which revolves around the character that she's creating.
The following morning, Christina and the cast returned to work happy but anxious. Despite the accolades, Jessie was still very much a show in flux.
We're surprised every day because it changes every day. The characters change every day throughout the week, and then finally they come back around and they're where they should be.
Christina felt the producers were avoiding one of Jessie's most important facets.
One thing that I would really love is more scenes with Jessie and her son. I think that's a relationship that we haven't really explored all that much.
As production of the first season ended in May of 1999, producers plotted to change the course of the show.
It became a romantic comedy, and as successful as they are together, it wasn't quite what we meant the show to be.
Christina returned to work in August and found major changes to her series.
What we did was brought in a workplace for her, a serious workplace for her, and suddenly having a child, trying to find room for all these things makes more sense.
Jessie's new job as a nurse's assistant meant her days as a barmaid were over. But the series' new direction meant Christina lost some co-workers and friends. The actors portraying Jessie's father and brothers were written out of the show.
You get a bond with people, and it's hard to think that they're not going to be around. So I think I will always feel that.
We were walking on eggshells the first year, because you're always having the back of your mind, you're going to be off. You know, so the second season is more like, now we really feel like we have something to prove.
Producers added 2 new cast members. Actor Daryl Thierce came on board as not-so-understanding Nurse Kurt.
And then I had to take the bus.
Where are your genital warts?
Excuse
your
me?
pamphlets on genital warts. You're out. You're also low on coping with yeast.
He's a great grounding force for all of us and sets a wonderful tone for all of us.
Kevin Rahm signed on as Jessie's scatterbrained doctor at the clinic.
Daryl and I, come into this potentially awkward situation where we're not really replacing, but, additions to a thing that has already been established, and just there from day one with open arms.
The roles of remaining cast members were more clearly defined, giving Jessie an eclectic circle of friends. Christina embraced the changes, becoming a cheerleader for the cast.
I mean, everyone is just really hyped up, and there's just a great energy sort of permeating the stage, and it's nice. It's a nice place to come to. The sun's always shining in here, you know? It's really nice.
She tries very hard to make all of us unified. And that's not easy to do when you have 7 actors.
And what's her favorite say? It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Coming up on Celebrity Profile, a few final secrets.
It's like she's having a fling with herself.
This weekend on E!
I love it here. It's the ultimate party.
From Southern hospitality to Southern exposure, E gets wild on Dixie. This weekend on E! Discover the surprising side of this hot television star. Christina Applegate's Celebrity Profile.
Christina Applegate has come a long way since her days as an anonymous baby spokesmodel. Although growing up in the spotlight hasn't always been easy, after nearly 3 decades in front of the camera, Christina is ready to reflect on her bumpy road to success.
I don't know. I guess been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, but I'm really happy I went, you know?
One constant on Christina's journey has been the unbreakable bond with her mother. A bond that, despite the years of personal and professional hardships, has only grown stronger.
There was a time when she felt she had missed some really normal things, and she really missed the being around the kids and their parties, and that was hard. She sometimes felt like she did miss some of just being a kid, some teenager.
I think she feels regrets that I didn't get to you know, be a normal kid, you know, and she feels regrets when she sees me tired, or she sees me have disappointments. And I just wanted to tell her that thank you, and that I'm so glad that my life turned out the way that it has.
Christina doesn't believe in regrets. She's already survived the spotlight as Christina Applegate, the celebrity. And no matter what challenges life may bring, Christina Applegate, the person, endures.
You gotta laugh at all the stuff that happens, you know? When you sit there and you think that it can't get any worse, you know? You gotta like stand back and laugh, because the truth of the matter is that at the center of all of it is something so magnificent, and it's okay.
She's really coming into her own, and people really know who she is, so it's happening.
It is.
She's the
Life
the
is
time
good.
of her life right now.
It's like she's having a fling with herself.
I think that she has an incredible amount of strength.
I'm very proud of her. I love her very much.
I love you, Christina. She knows I love her. You know that.
You pretty much
covered it all, right?
Covered it all.